hello vinyl community and music community and whoever else stumbled across this video. This is an entry for Dylan over at Noble Records. He's having a 750 subs contest, even though now he is over 1,100. He has just zoomed through this thing, man. His number of subscribers is just, the rate is just crazy. But great channel. Go check him out. I figure if you're watching my channel, you probably already know Dylan's channel. So, but check it out. But he's doing a contest, and he's calling it the Vinyl Biography. And excuse me if I keep looking down. I've got my notes down here, so I'm going to be checking those out fairly often. Make sure I get the questions right. But he's got 5 questions and then a bonus. And the first question is our first memory of vinyl. Well, my first memory of vinyl, I know music and records have been in my life forever. I grew up listening to my dad's 45s. He had some vinyl albums also. But my first memory is sitting in the floor with this metal can of 45s and just pulling them out and listening to them. And I know that I listened to them way before this memory, because I remember already knowing how to handle a record, not to put my fingers on the tabs or on the grooves, but to keep it in the center and on the edge and stuff like that. I already knew that. So I know my dad had been teaching me and working with me, but this is kind of the first memory I have, is sitting in the floor, going through those 45s that I'd gone through probably 1,000,000 times already, and just listening to them and listening to them and listening to them, and just love those songs. And I'll just show you a few of the people. I don't have the 45 because my dad still has them, but I'll show you some of the groups and musicians that I was listening to that were my dad's. Of course, I've mentioned this before, Buddy Holly. He had several Buddy Holly, but Peggy Sue, That'll Be the Day. But anyway, Buddy Holly, Bo Diddley. He had a song called Say Man. It was the funniest song. It had me laughing. But if you don't know that song, look it up. It's a good one. It's funny. But listening to Bo Diddley, Everly Brothers, Wake Up Little Susie, Bye Bye Love. I'm trying to think what the other big one he had. Kathy's Clown. All of those. Anyway, Everly Brothers, I grew up listening to. Bill Haley and the Comets, Rock Around the Clock, See You Later, Alligator. You know, this was in my everyday music listening. Johnny Cash, Don't Take Your Love to Town, Jackson, Ballad of Teenage Queen. Let's see what's on here. I Walk the Line, A Boy Named Sue. Those were 45s that I grew up listening to, trying to get that glare off of there. And one last one. I know Bo over at Earhead 6 showed this guy, Johnny Horton. I love Johnny Horton. Battle of New Orleans, Whispering Pines, The Springtime in Alaska. Just love those songs. Grew up listening to them all the time. Like I said, so that's my earliest memories of sitting there just time over time over time and listening to them. And somehow I managed to end up getting my dad's stereo into my room. And if I remember right, the reason I ended up with it was they ended up buying a big console TV stereo combination setup that had the TV in the middle, and then on one side you had your radio controls and stuff like that, and then on the other side you had a turntable and then speakers under the radio and under the turntable. And so big old console deal, big huge thing, probably 5 foot long, and or maybe even longer than that. Maybe it's close to 6 foot. But anyway, it was a big monster piece of furniture. And when they got that, I was able to get his stereo, an old Montgomery Ward's big box stereo, moved into my room, because I was the one that was always listening to the records. And so that's my earliest memories, is sitting there with that in my room and listening to the records all the stinking time, and just enjoying the music. Dylan's second question is the first album that we fell in love with. And I tell you, that was hard for me, trying to decide which was the first one. And so I'm going to go with the first one I fell in love with that I owned. Because my dad had a couple that I fell in love with before I ever owned any of my own. And I've shown those time and again, especially Marty Robbins' Gunfighter Ballads and Trail Songs. That one and Frankie Lane, Hell Bent for Leather. I listened to those two albums till I wore them out. They were just part of me. Just loved listening to those old Western songs and stuff that were on those albums. But the first one that I truly just fell in love with was this one right here that I owned. Sweet, Desolation Boulevard. I had a friend of mine, my dad finally, I say finally, realized how much I loved music and how I was taking care of my records, and he allowed me to get enrolled in the either BMG or Columbia House or RCA Record Club, one of those record clubs. I don't remember which one. And you get the 10 records for free, and then you got to buy one a month or whatever until you bought so many. But anyway, in my initial, I had a friend tell me, "Oh, you ought to get this one." It was one of the little peel-off stickers you could stick on. Was this one? And he said, "Man, get that. You'll love that. That's a great one." And so I was like, "Man, I've never even heard of these guys." And he goes, "Trust me." And so I kind of had got out the ones I thought I was interested in, and thought, okay, I'll go with this one. And man, was he right. I got this out and started listening to it, and it just blew me away. Just loved it. Every song on it, played both sides till this thing is so wore out. And I have to say, back before I started collecting, you can see this, that corner is kind of rounded off. Just over time, I wasn't the kindest to my covers, but that was before I was a collector. I was just a listener and loved listening to the music, and as long as that vinyl was good, I was happy. And so anyway, the cover's not the greatest, but that album still sounds great, and I love listening to it to this day, every song on here. So next question, the album that I spent the most on. That's going to be this one right here, Shiloh. I think I've told this story before. You guys know I'm an Eagles fan. Love the Eagles. This is Don Henley's first band, and Don Henley. But I had been looking for this and looking, and according to Goldmine record catalog, it was going at the time for like a near mint condition was like $40. But every one of them that I ran across, eBay, wherever, was going for 90, 80, 120. And I was just like, God, why are they so much higher? And I thought, well, that goes to show you Goldmine, where they came up with their price, I don't know, but supply and demand, I guess. Demand was more than what that Goldmine book was going, because they were in poor shape and still going for $100 or $90. And I was just like, I don't see why these people are paying that money for that. So I just held on and kept watching and watching and watching. And finally, one popped up one day, and I jumped on it and ended up getting this one. And I paid $45 for it, and that's the most I've ever paid for a record. I guess you can call me a cheapskate. I don't go out and spend the big money for records. I've spent more in the last year on new records probably than I've spent in a long time on other records in total. Just a few at that $30 and $25 price range. It just takes everything in my power. That's got to be something I really, really, really want to go buy. But anyway, so this is the one I spent the most on, $45. But glad I got it. This thing, it was listed as VG, but I guarantee you it's still in the shrink. I don't know if you can see that or not, but it's still got, you can still see the shrink on it. Record is in, I would call it near mint. I mean, it's right there at mint. It is so clean. The hole's clean. You can't see any marks on the label. And the cover's in great shape. The guy was very conservative with his grading, and so I was glad to get this one. And now they're going for 150 and stuff like that, and over with corners that are tore, or one that's you can see big wet marks on the back or whatever, or writing on them. So, glad I got this one finally. Album with great significance or impact. Okay, I had trouble with this one also because significance, to me, significance is more sentimental to me, I guess. Impact wise, I'm gonna go, I've had others that were big impact on me, but these two took me to different levels. And I've mentioned this one before, Steve Miller Band, Fly Like an Eagle. This would have been my first record I fell in love with, but I fell in love with the song Take the Money and Run before I had the album. And I had Sweet's Desolation Boulevard about probably a couple of months before I got this one. So both of those two top my list as probably the first ones I fell in love with. But anyway, glad to have this one, because it, like I said, this took me from Buddy Holly to 70s rock and roll. I had heard of the Beatles, I'd heard of the Doors, but I didn't really know that much about them. I had an older brother. He listened to music, but he did it in his car or with his friends. He didn't listen to it at home and stuff like that. And he wasn't the music lover that I am. He had a handful of records, or not even a record. He had a handful of 8-tracks, and that he listened to, but he never did. We never taught music up until I was in high school. So that's when I really started finding out how much music and some taste we had in common. But anyway, this was, like I said, probably the first impact record for me. And the next one, Kiss Destroyer. This is one that took me to the next level of saying, oh man, I've got to have everything these people have. I loved, I guess it was the shock factor of, what's the deal with the makeup? Boy, that was cool. That was different. That was, the stage persona and everything. It was just, like I said, different. But yet, it drew me in. And it took me to that next level of a big, true collector wanting anything I could find that had Kiss on it. And so, those were the two big impacts for me. And then from there, yeah, I've had other records and stuff that were impactful or meant a lot to me, but these were the two impacts that took me to different levels in my stage of collecting and liking music. The next question was, what is your ultimate grail list? Well, there again, I've said it before. Y'all get tired of hearing it. I'm an Eagles fan. One of my grails would be to find this. This is the DVD for Eagles Hell Freezes Over. Is to get this on vinyl. The vinyl for this has been running ballpark $300 to $400 everywhere I've seen it. So I'm just like, God, I can't dish out that money. That's out of my league. That's one of those deals I'll probably never get unless they do a reissue of it, and then I'll have to go that way. But a grail for me, a true high dollar grail, would be an original pressing of Eagles Hell Freezes Over. That would be one of them. My next two are also Eagles related. One being, I've mentioned this before, Long Branch Penny Whistle. This is Glenn Fry's first band with Glenn Fry and J.D. Souther. Same thing as with that Shiloh record. I see them out there, but for the price and for the shape, I can never find one that's in great shape with a decent price. You get one at even 75, 80, 100, most of the time they've got issues with them. Whether it's bent corners and if I'm going to pay that money, I want one that's in near mint condition or very, near mint, VG+++, whatever. But I don't want to see hardly any flaws on that thing if I'm going to dish out that type of money for it. And so this one, my understanding is this one was just re-released last year or early this year. I have not seen it. I haven't really looked for it under the new release, but I think it's been re-released on vinyl. But an original would be so cool to have on the Amos label. It was from 1970, but that one, and then the other one, I don't know if y'all are familiar with this group, Flow. Flow is another 1970s band. Their only release. My understanding is there's two different versions of this cover for this one. One does have the Flow with die cut, and the other one is just a screenshot, solid, smooth surface. But a die cut would be so cool. But either version I would love to have. Flow. Flow was the first band that Don Felder was in, who ended up being in the Eagles. So I've been told that it was kind of a progressive jazz, progressive sounding, jazz sounding, folky sounding, kind of a little bit of everything on this record. So, but yeah, those would top my list probably of the grails that I would love to have. Dylan also asked for a bonus question. Bonus being, why collect vinyl? Why do we collect vinyl? For me, I think the number one thing is that's what I grew up with. I didn't grow up with cassettes until I got in high school and started, taping some of them off. And I didn't have a cassette player in my car even. I take it back. I did have a cassette player, and that's why I taped some of them off on my first car. So that's the vinyl is where it came from. I didn't go out and buy cassettes pre-recorded. I recorded them myself from my vinyl. And then beyond that, the 8-tracks. I never really was big into 8-tracks. I had a handful through the years, but not that many. Got into the digital age, and I finally decided, well, vinyl's dead. It is gone. It won't be back. I started buying CDs, and I have several CDs, but I prefer the vinyl. I think it's like I said, it's what I grew up with. It's the physical holding that album, being able to sit there and read the cover, pull out the inner sleeve and read the inner sleeve while I'm listening to this record. And I think with vinyl, it requires attention. So you get the attention to it. You give the attention to it. Where digital, you just punch it in and you can go, and that thing will play forever. And it doesn't require any attention on your part. So you can tune it out and just keep doing what you're doing and not think anything about it. Where vinyl, you're listening to that music, and once it stops, you know, oh, I better go flip it over. So the physical side of it, the reading it, and as you young guys don't understand this yet, but as you get older, it's much easier to read this than it is to read that. It get the smaller print. It's okay. I'm not going to say anything against it other than when you have to fold it, pull that thing out a mile because of the way they fold that thing, and then you get little bits and pieces on there, and it's so small. I just prefer the bigger stuff from the vinyl. There again, I think it goes back, like I said, it's what I grew up with. It's the nostalgia of what I had growing up. So anyway, Dylan, great channel. Love your channel, man. You've got to come up with more big collections that you come across and are able to obtain. I tell you, it is amazing the stuff you pick up. So great job, great videos. Enjoy your channel. I know I've been following you I think you probably had just a few hundred subscribers maybe, and now here you are at over 1,000. So but great job. Keep up the great work. Enjoy your stuff, and hope you enjoy it. Y'all have a great one.